Hey, what's up, guys? Jerry Raganese, Greg Renlian here. We are going to be going over the first round face-off matchups of the Division I NCAA tournament. We have the stats. We are looking at it from a face-off only standpoint. We will let the pundits fight over who's actually going to win the game because we're not that interested in that. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with quarterfinal groupings. We're going to go with Hofstra at Short Stadium, that Long Island. And we're going to do two matchups at a time in these episodes. The first matchup is going to be number 1 overall seed, North Carolina, taking on Monmouth. Jared, what do you see sticking out in those matchups right there?
Well, I think you see a two-headed monster versus last man standing with Monmouth. Sitar has been the only man in the show for Monmouth all season, and UNC's been rolling out the Double Dragon take, and that's gone well for both of them, clearly.
Yeah, Tucci and Tyre have done an amazing job. Sutar, you have to look at the fact that he has taken every single rep this year for Monmouth. He hasn't taken one face-off off. So this is literally 1 versus 2. Mm-hmm. So when you look at his percentages throughout the year, he's been very steadily in the top 5 all season. So the standing neutral grip has certainly worked well for him, but he at 72 ground balls and at 71.5%. And that's not even leading the country, which is showing you what that difference in the rule changes were this year. This first year where it's absolutely nuts. It'll quiet down next year when everybody gets a full year of training correctly under their belt. But it is kind of astounding to see someone at 71.5% not lead the nation. And certainly in the talks of All-American. He's done an amazing job this whole season. But I want to look at his style. So his style, when you look at, he has 72 ground balls out of 151 face-off wins. So half the time he's going to himself, and he really likes to rotate after his clamp. Across the stripe from him, you have Tucci, who likes to get in and out right away. He likes to put his weight down and completely crush the ball. Whereas Tyre likes to get in and out super fast, and almost every single time he wins the clamp, it's going forward. So if you're Monmouth looking at this UNC double-headed dragon, and you're used to winning over 70% of your faceoffs every game, how exactly do you line up against UNC?
I think you go out there and you go with what you've been doing the whole time until Tyre Tucci shows you that you have to go with something else. Again, he is winning 71%, which is higher than the UNC unit, albeit Monmouth doesn't play in the same conference as UNC. So the opponents are gonna be a little bit different, but I'm sure Sitar is going to be out there rotating, and then it's really going to be up to UNC to play to his weaknesses, which is going to be going right into those counters, lifting the left hand, making those rotations fail for Sitar. So I think, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I don't think you change anything. UNC is a good unit, but clearly Sitar is putting up excellent numbers, and that's what I'm excited to see come game day is, if things fail for him, what is he going to do? Because again, when you're winning 71%, which is an absurd number, he really hasn't seen too much adversity this year. And if he does, will it be too little too late for some recalibration in the middle of the game?
Yeah, it's very few times would we say going into the tournament that a guy who's almost 20% better than his opposition might not be as prepared for a tournament matchup. And the reason we're looking at that in a unique situation is this is the first time that almost every team in the country has really only played teams within their own conference. Now, for North Carolina, they had, you're looking at the ACC. 90% of their games were in the ACC, and that is battle tested, right? Like this year, if you're going like Tucci, 58% against almost all ACC opponents, that's like the equivalent of like a 68% season in my book. Because you're talking about other guys like LaSala, Fop, you're running down this gauntlet, Naso, Ginder. You are going against a stud every week. So that's super impressive to me. Then you have Notre Dame with their double-headed guy situation. So, 58% in the ACC is remarkable, in my opinion. So, I think, like you said, if Sutar's used to winning faceoffs, he's taken every single one, which means nobody on that entire roster has any game experience this year as far as faceoffs are concerned. So if he struggles at all, then what's the backup plan? We've seen UNC have games where they struggle. we've seen games where Tucci and Tyre have gone in the mid to high 30%. They have experience in that situation. They've dug out of those holes and have been able to win without that. So your question for Monmouth is, how do you prepare? If I'm Monmouth, I'm sitting here looking at the Tucci and Tyre film, and I'm saying, okay, we cannot let Tyre clamp and pop the ball forward. So we have to have either our draw side or non-draw side guy honoring the forward break. Then on the other side of it, we have Tucci, who likes to get in and out. Both these guys love taking it to the rack. We've seen Tucci take that on the run bounce shot low from like 13, 14 yards. We've seen Tyre dive into the crease and score multiple times this year. And then when you look at the athleticism on the wings for UNC, they have a good game plan, and they have Will Fox coaching. So in game situations, I like favoring UNC just because of what they have on the sideline as far as experience to help make those tweaks. But if you're Monmouth, I mean, you have a guy who has been mowing people down all season. I love the idea of him being able to get in and out quick. I think the one thing he has gotten away from in his conference that you can't in the ACC is clamping and rotating. And I think if he clamps and tries to do his defensive exit, Tucci and Tyre are going to eat him up with the reverse shovel move.
Completely agree. And just going back to what you're saying about the points differential, UNC is showing 11 points or 11 goals. 11 points on the season, and Sitar is only showing 1 point. Obviously, a little bit of a difference, a little bit of different playing style. UNC is a little bit more run and gun, but that's going to certainly be interesting to see how that kind of plays into what's going on. Is Sitar comfortable taking that to the rack with only 1 point? I'm not really sure. And if they're going to try and slow the game down on UNC, which will also be interesting, will they go out the back? Will they try to incorporate their wings? Because again, you're going to have to try and slow down this red hot UNC team to kind of make it a little bit more to a Monmouth playing style. So it'll be interesting to see if Sitar is going to use his wings, because again, he's over half of his GBs are directly to himself, which tells me he's not super inclined to going to his wings a ton.
Yeah, I think both of these teams have face-off guys that really like to pop the ball to themselves. And we'll see if either team gets into trouble if they can make those 3-and-3 face-offs. All right, awesome. So let's go on to the next matchup. This is going to be a stark contrast. So we got Lehigh with Mike Sisselberger, who's on his way to setting the NCAA Division I record. He is hovering just over 79% right now. He could be the first face-off man in history to end his season with an 80% face-off percentage, which you and I have seen is just preposterous. I mean, the amount of things that have to go right. And he was mowing through the Patriot League. So there are face-off guys in the Patriot League. It's not like he was walking clean. Colgate has great face-off guys. They have a good coaching staff. You have Loyola, Bailey Savio, arguably one of the greatest face-off men in Loyola history. So he has gone against some dogs. He's battle-tested. Now, when you look across the stripe, though, you go from Mike Sisselberger with 210 face-off wins and 149 ground balls. And you look at Rutgers, and right now they are, as a team, around 42%. And they do it by committee. So you have Dugenio, Ott, and Yusefi, and it's not pretty when you look at, I mean, it's crazy because Rutgers could legitimately, if we're being honest, go into this game and go 10% and still maybe win this game. They've been doing it all season. So what do you do if you're Rutgers and you look over at the 2021 GOAT? You know he's going to be the first team All-American. He hasn't had a game where he's gone under 60% this season. So what do you do?
I think you got to look at it from a standpoint of, let's not look at the numbers. Let's look at the person across the stripe from us. Sisselberger is every single pound of 220. He's probably trending towards 230 right now. He's probably lying on the stat sheet. So you got to go, okay, this is a bigger human. We're not going to be able to counter him. Knowing the Rutgers roster, nobody is anywhere near that size if you even combine two of them together. So you got to say, what do we get? We got to play to our assets. We got to play to our speed. Let's see if we can run him out, beat him off the ground ball. As long as we're blocking him out the front, you can kind of consider that a win because, like you said, they may go 0% and still win this game with how high power Rutgers offense is. Just get a couple turnovers. Let's get the ball down to the other side. So it's really just they hope to contain Sisselberger, like, give him 4, don't let him get 8. I think that's your game plan here. And maybe even start with a poll or have the guys on a really short leash. Again, this face-off by committee thing has not done well for them. We know all 4 of their guys and they're all talented. They can put up numbers, but when you're going in 1 every 4, 1 every 5, doing 2, then sitting, it's really hard to get a good cadence going. And especially against, this titan across the stripe in Sisselberger, you're going to have to plan around him a little bit. But again, you do have your offense and your defense to bail you out. So it's going to be really interesting because we saw in the Villanova game, Sisselberger went like 92% and they still lost by 8. So it's like this kind of listen, it's a problem, but is it going to be a problem? I think that's going to be interesting to see come game day.
Yeah, I agree with you. And if I'm Rutgers, I don't put the poll out there. Sisselberger will eat them alive. I've seen the Rutgers polls. They obviously aren't really practicing much face-off stuff throughout the week. So if you put them out there, they're basically going to drop step and give up a face-off. So it all depends on how you want to look at that. But like you said, when you're just rotating randomly, it's very interesting. Face-offs now with the new standing neutral grip, it can be very, very beneficial to have 2 face-off guys that are a contrast, right? Look at Notre Dame and look at Charlie Leonard and Kyle Gallagher. So after that Duke game when they got beat up at the stripe, Charlie Leonard made a conscious decision that he was going to completely change his style away from what Kyle Gallagher was doing, which is clamp first. And now Charlie Leonard goes rakes and counters. So now you have a stark contrast. So with those 2 guys, and if they go into a game knowing they're rotating every 2 or 3, those 2 can game plan. And for the opposition, it is a massive pain because you have to change your wing setups. You have to change your technique, and you have to pay attention to the personnel at all times if they're both going in throughout the whole game. What you run into is if you go 2, 3, 4 guys, and they never know when they're playing or how many reps they're taking, that's when you're an absolute disaster. I've gone into games where I see 2 guys across that know what they're doing, and they know they're going to rotate, and I've had the game plan twice as long all week. And I've been in games where the team, whenever their guy is getting his butt kicked, they just throw someone else out there, and I know I'm in for a career day. So it's a very dangerous balancing thing. Now, Rutgers obviously doesn't have the situation where they've gone with 2 guys and they just go completely different styles throughout a whole game. This would be the perfect week to do that. If I was Rutgers, I would say, look, I would grab Ott and I would say, you're doing rakes and counters all week. And I would grab whoever else you want and say, you're going to be doing the pinch and pop or clamping. However, I wouldn't spend that much time on offensive moves. If I know I'm going against Sisselberger, who's a machine, I would play it like I would play mini defense. I would say, boom, I'm going to cut this half of the field and I'm not letting you dodge right? Same thing when it comes to face-off. You're going to win the clamp, but I am going to force you in a direction. If I've watched Sisselberger all season, the only time he gets in trouble is when he tries to force and rotate and take that step into a defensive turn. So if I'm Rutgers and I say, look, you don't like to put the ball through your legs and sometimes you like to force and go counterclockwise, then what I'm going to do is on the whistle, I'm going to step right, force you to go counterclockwise, and then I'm going to reverse shovel you. Now, that's not really in the repertoire for what I've seen, but it would be a great week to practice it every single day. On the other side of it, if I'm Lehigh, a high-powered Rutgers team that has done really well in the Big Ten, I don't want to lose to you guys, so I would love to use the talent I have and the huge advantage I have at this one position to create instant offense. So all week, I would game plan to work on where do you want to move our wings pre-whistle, pre-setup, in order to get the ball out to space so that we can create transition. That doesn't mean just pinch and pops. Maybe you write up plays where you throw the ball to your wing and have the other wing cut over the top, throw it over top, create some interesting 4-on-3s. If I'm Lehigh, that is a massive luxury that you need to use this whole week. You've got to get to practice and work on that stuff. Because if you can create transition and score 3 or 4 goals off of the faceoff, which they're totally capable of doing, you are guaranteeing yourself to be in this game. If they only sit there and win faceoffs and Rutgers almost goes like a half-court press and just says, okay, take the draw and we're going to back in and play 6-on-6, we're going to have a dogfight. So yeah. I think, it's interesting on how you look at that.
Yeah, again, I completely agree. If you just want to slow play, like the best way to take, to slow down the game is take the gas out of the tank, right? Just like let Lehigh do what they're going to do, give them what they want, which is face-off wins, and then say, hey, I think our defense stacks up with anybody in the country, which it does, and just try. Listen, they're going to get their 8 to 11 extra possessions, and you just got to rely on your defense. Where you're weak in one area, you got to rely on the other, and that's where I think this is probably the only game, at least that I'm looking at, on the docket where you can actually do that and hope to have success.
Yeah, I agree with you. All right. Well, we'll see who wins these games. If you had to predict which teams are going to come out on top at the stripe, who would you go with?
I'm going to go with the favorites. I'm going to go with UNC and Lehigh, but I would not be surprised because, again, this has been a hand speed year. If Sitar is hot, that he gives UNC a little bit of a fit.
I would totally agree with that. Yeah, I think Sisselberger will have a day, and then it's just a matter of can those translate to possessions, and then I would go with the UNC having a slight edge. But I agree with you. I think it's going to be a good battle at first. So next episode, we will be out here Tuesday. We'll be dropping our next episode, Georgetown versus Syracuse, and then UVA versus Bryant. So stay tuned for that. We'll be dropping it around 7 or 8 o'clock Tuesday night. Thanks a lot for paying attention, guys. For Jerry and Greg, signing off.